Okay, for the rest of this morning, we're going to have a workshop on this topic, the impact of family origin on marriage, right? And you might be thinking, how is this relevant to the theme? Right, our theme is work out your salvation in fear and trembling. But actually, one of the key ways to help us work out our salvation in fear and trembling is to marry in the Lord. Right? This is key teaching in the whole Bible. You've probably learned this since you were young, if you grew up in the church. The Bible's principle is that we marry in the faith, marry in the Lord, right? And as a preacher, even though I haven't been a preacher that long, but my observation of the families in various local churches, we can see how the marriage really does have a big impact on your faith journey, and it not only affects your own faith journey, but also your children and future children's faith or would-be faith, right? So this is something that the Bible clearly teaches on, and that's something that we should be determined to do, especially if you're not married yet, okay? Ecclesiastes tells us two are better than one, right? If one falls, then the other can pick the other up. And so it's when you marry someone in the Lord with the same faith and same values and same life goal and directions, right? We're all headed towards salvation. And then that will help us so much in eventually reaching that final destination, all right? Even though marrying in the Lord is a clear teaching, it doesn't mean that once you marry somebody in the faith that, your marriage is going to be like wonderful and perfect, right? Many of you know my testimony of how I got married to Joyce. It's clear for us. We clearly saw God's will and providence in bringing us together. But I tell you, the first year was very tough, right, of marriage. Thank God now, it's been 16 years, and it's very wonderful now, right, very wonderful. So the teaching of marrying the Lord is clearly biblical, but we want to continue to equip our youth with the godly principles to help them to thrive in their marriage, rather than because when your marriage is really good, your family life is really good, it's really like the closest thing to heaven on earth. But then if your marriage life is broken, or like you're not communicating, and then everything's really sour, it's really like a hell on earth. Okay, so it really can be kind of sometimes quite extreme. And unfortunately, in our church, there are members who have married in the Lord. They know that principle, but unfortunately haven't really carried out the teachings of Christ in their marriage, or haven't worked on themselves and things like that. And so some marriages in the Lord have ended up in divorce too, right? Or there have been even sexual immorality and those type of things, that like affairs and those type of things that happen to marriages in the Lord. And so that's something very unfortunate, right? Okay, so we need to nurture and cultivate our marriages in the Lord with biblical principles. And one small, but this topic that we're talking about today is kind of like a small sliver of a whole set of things that we kind of need to do to help our marriages. But even though it's kind of small, but it's significant, okay, to help us. And it's to recognize the deep influence of our, quote, family of origin, okay? Right? And this helps us to understand ourselves better and our spouse or future spouse, so that we can build a healthy marriage. So what is so-called family of origin? Can I have a volunteer to read this first paragraph? Someone with a good voice? Okay, Matt's got a good voice, yeah. Matt? Huh? No. Matt Shi. Yeah, sorry. You also have a good voice too, but yeah. Oh, okay. Your vision. Okay. You can move up if you want. Yeah. Sorry, it's a little. Yeah, I guess it's a little small. Yeah.
It refers to the family into which a person is from and born and
Yeah.
raised. It is a fundamental,
It's a foundational.
foundational influence on one's behavior, emotional processing, communication styles, beliefs, and expectations regarding
Conflict,
conflict, finances, marriage,
intimacy,
intimacy, and values.
and roles.
Rules.
Okay. So I'm gonna give your eye vision. Your. I'm gonna give. I think 20/40. Okay. I think it's 20. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So I think that we understand. Yeah. When you hear the term family origin, I think this is quite intuitive. It basically refers to the setting that you grew up in, right? The primary environment and like parents or guardians that you grew up in. And this has really a foundational, deep influence on many core behaviors and values and identity and all that. And then those things will naturally carry into the way you relate to other people and especially your spouse or future spouse, right? Okay. Maybe a sister. Can I ask Ariana? Can you please read the second paragraph?
Many marital issues do not originate after the wedding, but rather one rooted in unresolved dynamics from one's family of origin. Hence, we often unconsciously replicate behavior patterns learned in childhood or react to situations with behaviors stemming from childhood trauma. Many of our healthy and unhealthy behaviors we exhibit now can be traced back to family of origin. We must recognize the deep influence of our family or origin in order to understand ourselves and our future spouse so we can build a healthy marriage.
Okay, yeah, right. So, like I was saying, a lot of these things carry into your like future marriage or marriages now without you knowing it in a way. Um, Sometimes consciously, sometimes subconsciously. And this workshop, in a way, is taking some time to really examining those influences and impacts so that it can help us to adjust accordingly and then be able to be more prepared for marriage, or if you're already married, to kind of improve your marriage. Okay, so what are some of the things that family of origin impacts, especially in the context of marriage? Yeah, it was kind of listed already in the previous slide, but like communication patterns, right? Communication patterns. Some families are more direct. Some families are more indirect and more passive aggressive or something, right? Sometimes in the family, you do hear apologies, but sometimes in some family dynamics, there is no apology, right? If someone makes a mistake or something, right? So those type of things, okay? Emotional expression. In your family, like, are you able to express your feelings and emotions, or is it more like suppressed? Okay. Your view on faith, like in the family that you grew up in, was church and like worshiping God in the center of your family dynamic, or was it more like put on the side? Right? And then that can also affect how you view faith and then how you guide your future family. Your view on marriage and then like roles too of husband and wife, it's definitely, there's a impression that's made in the family that you grew up in. Like one thing that I kind of was thinking about like my father and my mother, they are like 2.5 years apart in age. My father's older, right? And then when I got married, or maybe yeah, or like my wife also is like 2.5 years younger than me, right? I don't know if that's if that was conscious or subconscious, but it just seemed normal, right? It just seemed okay. You marry someone a little bit younger, or for a guy, right? And then in growing up in my family, my dad was the main breadwinner. My mom was like in the beginning mostly a homemaker, but then it later went to the work to make some supplemental income. And then my mom mostly took care of most of the household chores, like especially in the house. And then my dad took care of the stuff outside the house, right? Like lawn mowing. And so that was my impression of what, like, family roles or gender roles are kind of like, right? Okay. Your view of intimacy and like commitment and attachment. Okay. This is also related. View of finances. Like you grew up in a family that was more well-to-do, or did you have to like pinch pennies? Right, yeah. This really also affects your marriage, because that's also one item that may have some conflicts too, right? Are you more generous, or are you more frugal or cheap, right? Things like that. How you resolve conflicts, or are they just kind of swept under the rug? Your self-worth a lot of times is molded in your family dynamic, right? In the setting that you grew up, were you mostly like a lot of times in Asian households, the traditional kind of Asian household, there's not much praise, it's more criticism, right? Yeah, and so you may grow up with lower self-worth. Right. And so there's a lot of things, okay, that our family of origin impacts, and we will discuss that, right, when we break out. So in the Bible, you can also see some of this, right? Family of origin, its impact is both positive and negative, okay, positive and negative. So in the Bible, you can see some, I think, you could consider positive examples. For example, Isaac, he knew about the true God and how to offer sacrifices since he was young. Why? Right, because he grew up in the household of Abraham and Sarah. And Abraham was somebody who called upon God and built altars all the time. And so when they were going to Mount Moriah, then Isaac questioned his father, we have the wood and the fire, but where is the lamb, right? So he knew this because he grew up in that environment. His concept of God, like that there's only one God, and like how you worship him was already instilled by that age. Another positive example is Moses. We don't know exactly how long he was able to spend with his biological parents, but we know he grew up as the son of the Pharaoh's daughter, right, in the privileges of the Egyptian palace. But with the limited time that his parents did have with him, they were able to instill a clear like Hebrew identity, and then identity of worshiping the true God within him. Okay, so he was, even when he came of age, he was able to just forsake all those luxuries and privileges. Timothy was well prepared for ministry, and it's because of his family of origin. Right, he grew up in a household with sincere faith that started with his grandmother, and then is also seen in his mother, and then also found in him now. And then he grew up knowing the scriptures. So that equipped him very well to follow Paul all around on the missionary journeys. But there's also negative examples too. Jacob, he showed favoritism among his children. He especially loved Joseph, made him a tunic of many colors, and that provoked jealousy amongst the brothers. Why did Jacob do that? Or what might have caused Jacob to do that? Of course, the Bible doesn't say explicitly, but you can trace it to his own parents, Isaac and Rebekah, right? And Isaac, loved Esau, and then Rebekah loved Jacob. So that kind of norm, in a way, was like passed down to Jacob and how he guided his family, right? And then that caused a bunch of strife, unnecessary strife within the family. Of course, God turned the negative into eventually to a good, but Joseph suffered a lot, and it was kind of related to the parenting. Hophni and Phinehas, they were the sons of Eli. They had a very corrupt ministry, breaking many of the Mosaic laws related to the sacrifice, and then even sleeping with the woman that went to the tabernacle. Right? And where does this come from? How can you be so bold to do these things, even in the tabernacle? Right? It's related to parenting. It's related to their family dynamic. Eli, the Bible clearly says in 1 Samuel chapter 2, I think verse 29, it clearly says that Eli honored his sons more than God. Right? So the view of faith, the view of God, and the view of the ministry, the value of ministry that was instilled in the children's hearts was that you can just take this casually. You could just use this for your own gain, right? And then that became perpetuated. And they were called, in the Bible English, useless men or corrupt men, right? Or I spoke a series on this a few months ago. They're called in Hebrew, sons of Belial, right? Corrupt, worthless men. Right, a phrase that repeats itself in 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel too. These next couple are not necessarily they're not necessarily they have families now, but in Nehemiah chapter 13, Nehemiah, after some time away, went back to Jerusalem and then found that the Jews had intermarried with foreign wives, and then they had children, and they could not speak the language of Judah. And this implies that means they also did not know the true God, right? They were basically following probably the customs of the foreign mother. James and John. Remember one time in Gospel of Mark, they were asking Jesus. They wanted to sit at the left hand and the right hand of Jesus in his coming, and when he comes in his kingdom. All right, that's in Mark chapter 10. Okay, so in the Mark record, it talks about how James and John were the ones who initiated. But if you look at the Matthew record, Matthew chapter 20, Matthew chapter 20, verse 20. It tells us that then the mother of the sons of Zebedee came to Jesus with her sons, bowing down and making a request of him. Right? And he said to her, "What do you desire?" She said to him, say that in your kingdom these two sons of mine shall sit, one at your right and one at your left. Okay, so it was the mother who was the one who spoke. So what I'm trying to say is, where did James and John kind of have this type of ambition or kind of concept, like I want to be preeminent amongst my peers? You can see like the mother had that type of gave them that type of mentality. Okay. Yeah, we're making a lot of assumptions from a sliver of text, but I think you know what I mean, right? Okay, so before we break out into different groups, right? This is kind of a summary page. When we realize that there is a positive impact from our family of origin, we should aim to sustain it, okay, even perpetuate it in our own family, and then hopefully it can continue to be carried on into the future, especially like faith, right? Faith should be a heritage that is passed from generation to generation. But if there's other good habits and good traditions, good values and concepts in your home, then that's something we should continue to perpetuate. But we are aware of something actually negative, right? Now that you're older and you can kind of have a better picture of like the environment you grew up in, you have a better understanding of yourself. When you examine this and you really take a good look into the mirror, then we need to first, acknowledge that we might have an issue somewhere, maybe in communication, maybe in our concept of money, maybe in our concept of roles in the family. Acknowledge it, and then really address it, right? We want to address it. In the book of James, chapter 5, verse 16, it says that we need to confess our trespasses to one another so that we may be healed, right? So we need to, it kind of touches upon like really addressing the issue. And then we use the truth in the scriptures to renew our mind and behavior. Sometimes in your marriage, you eventually realize that even though something was kind of normal in your family that you grew up, it's not normal to your spouse, or they have a different kind of standard of normal. And then in this case, it's not really like, no one's like right or wrong. Nothing's really like against the truth or not. So with that understanding, since it's not necessarily against the truth, we don't have to necessarily insist on our own way. But you can work with your spouse to form a new normal, right? A new way of that you can like coexist in a way, and then But then if there's something that's clearly not scriptural, then we need to use the truth to correct ourselves. Okay? So the key things about having a good marriage is you have to work on yourself first, right? We like to put the blame on the other person, and maybe in a certain situation, maybe the other person has most of the blame. But in every conflict, usually we also share a little part of it, right? And then, so we have to look at, well, what's that part that I've contributed to this negative situation? Right? Is there something that I can do better the next time? Right? When we're willing to work on ourselves and then use the truth to change ourselves, then our relationships with the people around us will become more healthy and more positive, including with our spouse. Right? So use the truth to renew our mind and behavior. So family of origin, of course, is something that you don't choose. God placed us in that situation. Right? And so even though there's those impacts and effects, it doesn't mean that that's your destiny, right? It doesn't mean that you won't be able to change. But yeah, actually, God gives us this truth, and then the Holy Spirit to help us to adjust. Okay, so with the help of the Holy Spirit, God's truth and grace, we can then build and have a healthier marriage. So at this time, I'm gonna call on Sister Julie, I think, to help us to get started. I think we have a questionnaire for everyone, and then we're gonna break out into different mini panelist discussion groups. Okay.
In the name of Lord Jesus Christ, I speak a few words. Praise and thank God that today we have a few of the MCs back there with their spouses that will be sharing with many of you about, our understanding of the impact of family of origin. So there's a questionnaire for you to fill out. This is for you to better understand and to an opportunity to look into, to examine yourself and to see in which areas we still need, to work on it. So I'm going to just you are going to take time to fill out this questionnaire from now, and then through the break time. Then right into when we start the next session, these are they're going to post the slides of the division of groups. So Group A, you guys will be in the dining hall. And Sister Katie and Brother Matt will be leading you guys, and they'll be sharing and leading the discussion groups. Group B, you guys will be here in the side chapel, and Brother Stephen, Brother Lawrence, and Preacher Samuel will be there to help us. And then Group 3, you guys will, because this is a large group, you guys will remain here in the chapel. And Sister Lena, Brother Daniels, Brother Dave, and Sister Trissy will be here to share and to assist. Are there any questions? So there are 2 pages. The first page is your questionnaire. The second page will be your discussion questions. So once you finish the questionnaire, you can also review the discussion questions that you'll be sharing with the panelists. Okay. And if any of you need a Chinese version, I have a Chinese version. But if you don't, then well, good. Okay, so I think the next session we will be back at 11:15. And am I right? Is it 11:15? Yes. Okay. So, yes, please take time to fill out the questionnaire. Thank you. Sorry. So there's no break. So if you need to have a bathroom break, just just go ahead. But there won't be, we won't have a break in 11:15. So we will ring a bell like a minute ahead of time, around 11:14, and then so that's when you will all start moving to your locations. Thank you.